Hi, and welcome back to the Perio Patient Podcast. And we're going to be talking about fluoride, but I just wanted to let you know, those of you who are kind of tracking these as I'm producing them, I'm sorry for the delay. We went through the Labor Day weekend and I drove to Birmingham, Alabama to see my mother, who is 95 years old and is under 24-hour-a-day care. She lives with my brother, my older brother. And it was good to see her, but it's also difficult. And I bring this up because I know a lot of you, as I've spoken with different ones of you as you come in, you deal with parents and all of these challenges that face us. So I wanted to just let you know that's kind of what's going on in my life a little bit. I know for most people who will be listening to this podcast, it'll be way later and won't be all that significance that there's been this little bit of a delay between episode 26 and episode 27. But I do appreciate and feel kind of a burden or a pull to want to keep connecting with you more frequently. So that's what's going on. If you haven't listened to the previous podcasts episodes on fluoride, then there might be a few things that are unclear as we go forward. But let me briefly go over at least the topics that we have covered so far. And it's really pretty simple. First, we talked about the fact that this is the 75th anniversary of water fluoridation. We looked at what fluoride is and where it comes from, and I hope you picked up why it is fluoride works to create strong crystal structures. Another thing we covered was an explanation of what the Cochrane Database Systematic Review is. I'll say that again. The Cochrane Database Systematic Review. To know more about that, you'll have to go back and find that episode. So now I'm going to go through one of these Cochrane reviews, just as I said I would at the very beginning of this fluoride topic. And the reason I didn't do it right off the bat was there was so much to first understand before we could get into this review, and I've just gone over what those topics were. So now I think we're ready. Now the title of this review is Water Fluoridation for the Prevention of Dental Caries. And dental caries is the scientific term for tooth decay. So I probably will use those interchangeably. I will have a link to the abstract I'm reading from in the notes to this podcast. And just FYI, I will be interjecting comments and I will leave out parts that I think take us too deep into less important things. And you're welcome. I will be reading from the abstract, which is a condensed summary of the larger report. I think it will give us the amount of information we need at our level of interest. And I know what I'm actually talking about here is my level of interest. For all I know, you have no interest in this at all. But if you will just hang in there with me, I think I can show you how even a subject like this one, and I was going to say it's a dry subject, but we're talking about water fluoridation, so that's a bad joke, so I'll avoid it. But I want to show you how a subject like this can be useful to us as we look at other complex issues that are coming at us all the time with labels of scientific on them. So the abstract begins with a background statement. This will explain why this report is important, as they put it. Here's what they say. Dental caries is a major public health problem in most industrialized countries, affecting 60 to 90% of school children. I'm going to say that again. Dental caries is a major public health problem in most industrialized countries, affecting 60 to 90% of school children. Did you know that many children have tooth decay? Let me stop though, and let's understand something. Where is this a problem? What kind of countries? Answer: industrialized countries. Why is that? Well, to put it bluntly, it has to do with refined sugar. And I'll do a podcast later on tooth decay itself, and we'll get into more about sugar and its relationship to decay. Reading on, community water fluoridation was initiated in the USA in 1945 and is currently practiced in about 25 countries around the world. Health authorities consider it to be a key strategy for preventing dental caries. Given the continued interest in this topic from health professionals, policymakers, and the public, it is important to update and maintain a systematic review that reflects contemporary evidence. Next in the abstract comes a section entitled Objectives. This describes the purpose of the review study undertaken by this group of researchers, and they list two objectives. First, to evaluate the effects of water fluoridation, both artificial and natural, on the prevention of dental caries. By artificial or natural, this refers to what we talked about earlier, that fluoride is the ion of element fluorine, number 9 on the periodic table, which is naturally found in nature. So it is with us. It's in our food and in the minerals and in the water. But we can also add it to water, which is a way to artificially alter the amount. There is no such thing as artificial fluoride. And this is not what this article is saying. All right. The second purpose, they said, was to evaluate the effects of water fluoridation, artificial or natural, on dental fluorosis. Dental fluorosis is a level of fluoride in the composition of enamel, tooth enamel, while it is being developed in childhood that changes the appearance of the teeth. The teeth can take on brown colors as well as become lumpy, have a lumpy surface appearance. Just to be clear though, not all colors in teeth are caused by fluoride. Next in the abstract, they go into search methods. And permit me to abbreviate this part. Essentially, they looked through an extensive number of electronic databases to include Medline and a number of studies and reviews in what are called the Cochrane Oral Health Group trials. And I'll skip all of that. Also, they went into the U.S. National Institutes of Health Trials Registry, and they looked at the World Health Organization's WHO International Clinical Trials Registry platform for ongoing trials. At the end of their list of platforms searched, they stated that, quote, there were no restrictions on language of publication or publication status in the searches of the electronic databases. I don't know what is meant by publication status. Perhaps it means that some may be ongoing even now, but let's move on. Next comes selection criteria. In other words, how are they going to select the articles and studies from these databases to read and summarize into this report? They said, quote, for caries data, remember this was the first study objective, to look at tooth decay levels, We included only prospective studies with a concurrent control that compared at least two populations, one receiving fluoridated water and the other non-fluoridated water, with outcomes evaluated at least 2 points in time. So what is a prospective study? A prospective study is designed to follow populations into the future. A retrospective study is looking back in time. So the prospective studies are looking at what happens when one group, and when it comes to fluoridation, usually a city, is fluoridated compared with another group that drinks water with low levels of natural fluoridation. And for the second objective, dealing with the question of fluorosis, they said, for the assessment of fluorosis, we included any type of study design with concurrent control that compared populations exposed to different water fluoride concentrations. We included populations of all ages that received fluoridated water, naturally or artificially fluoridated, or non-fluoridated water. And then let's just start into the main results. I won't go very far here. A total of 155 studies met the inclusion criteria. 107 studies provided sufficient data for quantitative synthesis. By quantitative synthesis, they mean that they were able to adjust the data in these studies to come to some broader conclusions. So let's stop for a moment and think about the risks of doing something called quantitative synthesis. To take a number of studies designed in different ways and attempt to combine their data can lower the precision of the data. It has the potential of misrepresenting the data and would be difficult for anyone simply reading the report, like you and I, in order to refute it. Am I concerned? No, not in the sense that I believe someone is trying to tell me something that isn't true, but I think it is always important to be skeptical. Which brings me to my frustration with the misuse of science in the general culture. I get that this discussion about fluoridation is complicated. It's hard to stay focused and listen closely, especially when we get to the point of talking about numbers and statistics. But again, unless we really are talking about how science really works and is documented in studies and reviews, we are left to simply trust unscientific people who give us news that what they think is true is true. There was a whole angle on fluoride that I have left out here, but it was tempting to get into, and that has to do with the personalities that have pushed the anti-fluoridation message. On the one hand, they may have valid concerns, but on the other hand, if you study their activities, it quickly becomes clear that there is a lot of money and notoriety if you become the go-to person on any controversial topic, especially one that stands against the general scientific community. But again, this doesn't necessarily mean they are wrong. It does, in my mind, as I'm trying to look at the data, paint them in a poor light. On the one hand, science is never about consensus. In other words, I really don't care if someone says all the scientists agree this or that. What people think is never proof. In fact, it is the beginning of true research, which is to find where our group thinking is mistaken. Scientific breakthroughs are always breaking through what it was we thought was true. For example, let's talk about the world being flat. Now, I guess you might be thinking that I'm going to tell you that Christopher Columbus proved the world was round by sailing west from Spain and discovering the New World. But that was what I was told and believed in school. It turns out that people believed the world was round all the way back to the 5th century BC. My point is that we all think things that just ain't so, and that we often just accept information without a lot of deeper reflection. We're busy people. However, it's important, I think, to keep pushing more and more for more clarity as we go. In this way, it isn't just about questions about water fluoridation, but this effort to understand this subject a little better can equip us to know about other things more as we move on. And if you just pause and think about the things we've talked about through these 27 episodes, it's quite a lot of stuff. Okay, now is a good time to stop for today. Next time we will pick up right here and continue to find out more about what these investigators found when they reviewed a large body of studies about water fluoridation. Thanks for listening.